Oh, hey everybody, it's Professor Mandziuk again, and this is part 2 of our tutorial about masking. Today we are going to go over selecting and masking a little bit more by using that Refine Edge for Hair tool in the Select and Mask tool. We'll also be outputting that as a new layer with a mask. We'll be going over channels a little bit more, as well as feather and blur. We'll also be compositing, adding multiple images to one canvas. We'll also talk about the healing and clone tools as well as AI backgrounds versus old school backgrounds. And that'll be it for today. So let's go ahead and open up our Photoshop. Okay, so I have these same images open that I had you download from the last tutorial. And I have this bird image, and I am going to go ahead and just go into Object Select tool. Again, I think Object Select gets a little bit closer to what I want as opposed to the automatic Subject Select that generates there. So I'm using this, and I'm just gonna again go in and double check that I have all those areas the way I want them to be. And if I go back to any of these selection tools, you'll notice that it'll say select and mask up here. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select that. And you can see when I select this, this takes us into a new window. And when I'm in here, we'll notice on the right, this property panels is loaded, right? And I just want to show you the different view modes. I personally either like onion skin, which you can see it fades out the background so you can see how this image is selected. Or I like overlay because it's a different color. I also often use marching ants too. But onion skin or overlay for me, I prefer the most. You might like having a black background or a white background, which is just a transparent too. Or you can have the actual mask in here. If I zoom out a little, you can see a little bit better. And then last is just on your layers. So if I had a background layer already on here, it would be showing through. So I typically do either overlay because I like the red, I can see the differentiation. Or again, if I have layers, I will choose on layers. And so choose whichever one you like. I'm just going to choose overlay because that's what I'm used to. And you can use the select subject. It's optional, but it often improves the base selection. So it says this will discard what you did. So it kind of changes that. And I think it just made it, you can see it, it took off the back claw, the back talon right there. So it actually is not as good as the original selection, but I just wanted to show you what that would look like. And from here we can refine the edge, okay? So what I can do now is I can paint to add to the selection. So if we hover over here, it's like I have quick selection tool, I have brush tool, I have refine edge brush tool, I have object selection, much like we have on the main toolbar. I have a standard lasso, I have a hand. Why do I have a hand? So I can move this around, and a zoom tool. So just starting out with the brush tool, I just want to show you. So you can see I just brushed within, it didn't really do anything. And the reason for that is because we want this to be for the edge. So this would be for something like hair. So I could go in and go over the areas like this. And you can see now more red showing through. So what's actually happening is it's making it more, it's like a feathered effect, but like specifically for like fur, hair, things like that. So if you know, oftentimes you do get a clean silhouette like the rest of the bird here where the wing is flat, but then a lot of the times, especially when you're working with wildlife photos or just photos of humans, even if they have straight hair, there will be some flyaways. So I can go through and I can kind of compare and see what areas might need that refinement. Okay, and this is very, very subtle. I will do a more specific hair demo later. But that's how that would work. The brush tool manually forces areas in or out of the selection. So this is kind of like the mask tool. So you can see painting red will mask out an area. Oops. And then if I do, here's an example. So I'm masking, or I'm deleting out of the mask now, right? So this is all areas that are showing now. So that's how that would work with the brush tool. Next, we have global refinement. So what are these? And I'm going to go back and make this red again. So these are different settings that can smooth. So this one smooths out the jagged edges. Low values are better for this one. If you start going high, then you get too smooth, especially if you're using something that's, or using a photo of hair or a bird. And feather softens the edge. You can see now there's like almost a little glow around it. So you want to be really gentle with that too. I would say like 0.2 all the way to 1 pixel. I would go no further than 1 pixel. Contrast sharpens the edge. So this gives it a nice crisp edge. And shift edge expands or contracts the selection depending on what you need. Sometimes maybe you need to bring it in. I've mentioned that I will be looking for white halos or outlines around Photoshop. If you ever notice that you have one of those, you can come in here and shift edge. I'll show you another thing you can do to change those outlines if you ever have issues with that, but this is something that you would use. I typically do decontaminate colors, and what that does is it cleans up the edge a little bit and makes it a little bit sharper in color, and I think it always just looks good. It's just something I naturally do. I don't think I ever don't use decontaminate colors on here. So these are the ones you really use. You can use edge direction. What edge direction or detection, sorry, excuse me, does is it just changes the edge a little bit and you can see it shifting. There's also a smart radius, and so this is like an automated version of finding that edge or refining that edge. It's not always super accurate. So I just like doing it on my own. And then in refine mode, we have color aware or object aware. So I'm not changing it, but you can play around with these. But one is referring to the color of the piece and one is referring to the object itself. And you can play around with those and see when and when not you might want to use those. So now I can output this to a new layer with a mask or a new layer. I typically do the new layer with layer mask because that's just typically how we've been working. I think it's a good habit to get into as a new designer. So I'm going to click OK, and you can see now I have a new layer with that mask. If I wanted to, I could change it. I could, paint in or out some of the areas still, but it's just sitting there as a standard typical mask. So now what we can do is if we look at this, and I actually can see that this got a little bit too feathered, so I would typically go in and sharpen it a little bit more, but I think I was playing around with those different settings for you. But I want to show you a couple other tools. So if I wanted to, if I want to select the channel, the marching ants that go around this object mask to make them active, I can just do Command Control. You'll see that little dotted marquee square show up over the thumbnail. And that now shows me where the selection is. So with this now, I can actually go into select, and let's say I did, if I made a new layer under this that is bright red, let's say, oops, need to deselect again, and it's not happening, but again, I'm going to be pretty rigid about this. I don't want to see any weird white outlines around your cutout images. That's a big design no-no, and you should get that out of your system right away. So if you ever have cut out an image and you're like, I have this white outline, oh no, Lynn's gonna kill me. You need to go into select, and you can go into modify. And if we go into contract, you can just contract it, and I wouldn't even do two pickles, two pixels. I would just do one, and you can see that it shrinks it a little bit. And I can just go back into this mask, and I can even just delete this mask and start over, right? I can just remask it now. And you can see now it's in a little bit more. You can also use that same selection to feather. You can contract, you can expand, so you could make it bigger as well. You can smooth it, you can border, but the two that I use the most are contract and feather. There's not there's not too many times that you will use expand. Not in photo retouching anyways, maybe when you're doing something else, but typically you're going to be pretty close to the image and you're going to want to contract more than expand or grow. But you might want to feather, and what feathering does is, again, I would stay pretty low. You can do this multiple times. Like if I do this feather once and I'm like, ooh, that didn't really do what I wanted it to do, and again, you're going to have to mask every time. You could paint it on, but I just delete and I create a new mask every time. You can see there's feathering, but maybe I'm like, I want a little bit more feathering. So I'll go back to select, modify, feather, and I'll do it again. And I usually just do the small incremental because I think people have a tendency to do too much right away and then you lose the image. This way you can kind of see what's happening every time. And again, I'll delete that mask and I will remask, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that looks great. This looks great. That's what I wanted. There we go. So that's just a little bit about contracting and feather. The feathering is a good way to make your image not look so cut out because it helps it sit in the background a little bit. Some people will use a blur tool, and you could do that as well. And this is where you might use the expand tool. But just to show you how I would maybe blur out the edges, I would select, modify, contract. I would do 2 for this. Contract 2. And now I want everything on the outside of that blurred, not the interior. So I would go to select, inverse, and now I would go to filter, blur, and you can use any of these blur tools. They all do different things. Like motion blur gives you like the fast lines, radial blur is a circle, lens blur is like an aperture effect, field, I don't know where the field blur might live somewhere else. You'll notice that only some of these filters also work in RGB. All of them will work in CMYK. So that's something, if if you ever are in the file and you're like, why can't I get this filter? That's probably the case. You have to switch modes. And if it's, that you're working on a screen RGB piece that's a final output, but you want to use these filters, you'll have to switch to CMYK for that. I typically use Gaussian though, and the reason I use this is it's really easy to control. Like I can see it. Usually you can see a good close up here, but I think my computer's really working hard tonight, so it's really hard to see. But you can blur it, and you can see I can blur it so much that it actually does that, right? Because this is blurring the mask as well. So, but if I wanted a slight blur, or let's say this was a destroyed layer where I had just like deleted the background out instead of using a mask, you could easily blur that out. Just to show you what blur does on an actual image, I'll go back and I'll show you the blur tool so you can see. Oh, I see what's happening. It's actually blurring my mask. So you need to make sure the actual image is selected. That was a faux pas on my behalf. And also now you can see that more of the galleries are coming up. So field blur is one I use quite often too. So this one's cool because I can do like a fake aperture effect for those of you who are into photography. So I can say, I want this super clear, or like, I want it to be like, oh no, I want it to be not blurred at all, but my arrow is not doing what I want. And I want the eye. And then I want here, I want this to be blurry, but not as blurry as it is. And then maybe this can be more blurry. So now we're getting like a fake field, range of vision on our elements here, and it's giving us an illusion of depth. Obviously it's a little bit drastic because I overdid it here, but that's mainly because my computer is being really slow right now. So that's just what it would look like if you blurred it on its own. And we'll go over more of those filters as we go down the line, but that's a really nice way to make things kind of sit in their image a little bit more. Again, in the last video I showed channels. I just want to talk about it again. So if we go to window, channels here, it's always living next to layers. You'll see that these are the different channels for the image. If we turn some of them off, like for instance, if I turn red and blue off, this is the green channel. If I turn green and blue off, that's what it is. If I have red and green turned on, that's what it would look like without the blue channel, and that's what it would look like without the red channel, so on and so forth. So this is a good way of selecting things. Sometimes you can see the silhouettes easier here. Sometimes it's easier to do a direct select in this field, especially if you have something really high contrast. So that's something that you'll want to use. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to composite some images. We're going to add some images together in a collage fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to, we'll take this image. And so I could, if I wanted to, I could go in and use this tool, and I'm doing this really fast and dirty right now. And I do actually often work this way in Photoshop, but I can go back and refine. I could do this with the polygonal lasso, but realistically, if I, oops, sorry, this is getting sticky. If I really wanted to select this, like these days, this works pretty well and it gets the building. And if I wanted to include some of this other stuff, that's when I can go. And I would probably use the quick selection tool with the brush. And I can click shift. And now I can select maybe some of this sagebrush. I can select the rocks. I pretty much want everything except the background. That's what I'm trying to achieve in this one. And I get all of this selected again. It's pretty easy to do. I don't want to do too many back in my days, but back in my day, and I am a young gun compared to like my dad, who was also a graphic designer, who literally had to like cut out photos by hand with an X-Acto knife and like paste them down and Xerox them. We used to like, this was painstaking. Like it's so easy to do this stuff now. It's really nice. So feel lucky, take advantage of it. It makes life a lot easier. And, realistically, I probably would go in with that select and mask tool for hair and do that whole process for the sagebrush because it acts like hair. But I'm not going to because I don't want to spend all of your time doing that. So now I have this selected. So what can I do? Well, I can do everything we just talked about. And I will go to select and mask, but this is, well, okay. You know what? I lied. We're going in here and I am going to refine this edge. Which I just picked that refine edge brush and I'm literally just going in this way. And you can see, it's kind of like sticky. It's like automatically picking the areas that it thinks should be refined. If you think at any time that it's not accurate, you can go in with the other paintbrush and do it. But I'm just gonna stick with this for now. Oops, that is there. I want to remove that because somehow, no, you get to hear me say no to Photoshop. You should have heard me during the pandemic. I was talking to myself a lot. So now I can just go through and make sure that looks good. I think the only thing I really want to use from this is I do want to feather it just a hair. And again, that's just to make it sit in the image a little bit more. I think I actually am going to shift the edge just negative. And again, that does what that contract tool does as well, except you're already in here and you can kind of test it. But sometimes, you don't think about it or you fudge it. And I'm going to do decontaminate colors too. And again, that just like softens the edge a little bit. And I'm going to do okay. And it softened it quite a bit, but it is what it is. I think it's actually better that way because I can show you what that does. So now let's say I want to put in, like, what else do we have here? I don't think it's like, I want to put in like a nice sunset, but it looks like I don't have any of those things. So we're going to do something weird and I'm going to see if I can mesh this thing in here. Just to show you what it would look like. And then I'm also going to show you how to use AI. And I just copied this over. Again, you could resize it first. Maybe I'll just use the blue of the sky in this one. And now I have this nice blue sky, right? And I can put anything in there. I could paint mountains. I could get a mountain scene. I could get a completely different scene and add that in there. And that would be just wonderful. But something else we can do is here, I actually do want to show you this tool. So this is a destructive edit. So if I did remove background, this would automatically just remove it, right? And from here, I could actually generate a background. So I could say outer space on one of Saturn's rings. And my dog is making a lot of noises today. So if you ever at any point hear anything like snorting or honking, that's my dog. She snorts a lot. She just breathe. She's not a mouth breather. She's a nose breather and she just breathes like this. I can't even make the sound. Anyways, you might hear that from time to time. So here now I have this crazy scene of an intergalactic church on some planet, and actually, these are interesting. I mean, I could regenerate. You can keep doing it over and over until you get something you want. But that is a newer tool in Photoshop for generating a background. Okay. Um these ones are getting crazy. I do like the sagebrush planet in lava that they have though. That's really interesting. So that's how you would do that. Um I think I saw on here edit background. So you can import a background too. Okay, so this can take you like straight to your downloads folder. And I apologize, my computer is so slow tonight. It's because I'm doing all these videos, I think. Let's see what I can't even see what images I have because of that stupid window. Anyways, I sound like my mom. I'm getting all grumpy. I'm not grumpy, I swear. I just talk to myself a lot. We'll just use, I don't know what I have here. I use these for other demos. I mean, that's, whatever. Anyway, so you can import your image directly in there too. So that's how that would work. Um, let's see. The other thing I want to show you is the healing and the clone tool. And that's the last thing we'll do in this video. The next video will have some more mashups. I'm going to show you how to use adjustment layers. I'm going to show you how to use blend layers and how to make really beautiful Photoshop layered images, combining a bunch of different images. And then I'm also going to show you another demo on just compositing an image that you can follow along with. And also, oh, I'm going to show you how to use type in this video too. We're going to add type into this video. So, first though, I want to show you, I already showed you the clone stamp tool a little bit, but I just want to show you again what you can do with it. So again, if you press Option or Alt on a PC and I click that as the area I want to copy, you can see I can just make an exact copy of that. And for something like this, it'll literally just stay in that same area. So I can literally even get that water reflection of the pole in there. And I can go in and I can touch that up more. But that's how that works. The healing tool. So this works similarly to the clone tool in that if you click Option or Alt on a PC and you select an area, that is the area that is sampled. And you can also use the healing brush tool for that. And so now let's say we want to get rid of that. So you can see that just goes away, which I'm doing a really sloppy job, right? I could get in all the right brushes and tools, but you can see it can delete things. So if I wanted this person out, that person would disappear. But there's also the healing brush tool. And so how this one works is, let's say I want to clean this up and make the water line even. Or I want to get this guy out of here. And I'm doing this really messy. But you can see it kind of corrects itself. So that's another tool. All of these tools kind of do something similar to that. You can play around with those. There's specifically a red eye tool, but these are all for removing things out of an image like that. The other thing I'm going to show you Oh, maybe I'll go back to this church one. I forgot to show you one more tool. The other tool I want to show you is, I'm going to select just this mask, and I'm going to go to inverse, and I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to go to content aware fill. And I don't know if this is going to do what I want. It's not, because I'm actually going to break my rule of saying non-destructive editing, and I'm going to just delete. Oops. Delete this one. Oops. Oh, why is it deleting so much of it? I don't know. Anyways, so I'm going to do select inverse, and I'm going to do content aware just to show you what you can do with this. And so you can see you can generate the whole background. Like in this case, it's turning everything into that sagebrush and rock. I don't really like that. I think it looks weird. So I'm going to go back to inverse, and actually I'm just going to select this area. And I'm going to say, I want this to change to something else. And I'm going to go back to content aware fill. And you can see you can completely get rid of those rocks. So now I applied, I clicked OK, and now I go back and those rocks are gone. Okay. So that's something you can do. Edit, fill, you could just fill it with color too. You can do a pattern, things like that with the actual fill properties box, but you also have generative fill, so I could write in fill with lava. And, sometimes you have to be less vague when you're asking for what you want. It's like, be careful what you wish for. You have to be specific. It's kind of like, when people talk about like planning your dreams and things, it's like, be specific with your dreams, because you might say, I want 1 million. And instead of getting $1 million, you get a million like bouncy balls or something like that. I think I think it's the same with writing prompts for AI. Anyways, so you can have a lot of fun with that, right? Also we have generate image. So again, you can just generate your own image from Firefly. And we will be using Firefly if you want for the playing card assignment. So last on the agenda, I just want to show you the type tool. So the type tool, we'll just grab that. Again, you can just type this stuff in and boom. We want to think about placement of type. Again, no stretching. Like this is a big no-no. This is a big no-no. It's fine if you scale, but I would prefer that you're using, like, really general rule of thumb is, if we go into window, character is type, you're using this to change the size. That's really the accurate thing, and you're all designers now and you should get used to that. But don't stretch your type. I will call you out on it. You can always tell when someone stretches or squeezes their type. It just looks awful. And you will all notice this. You will all get an eye for it after this class, after typography, and you will be ruined, and you will never ever be able to look at type the same, because you'll be like, the spacing is wrong, or that's squished, or that font is really hard to read. So last on the agenda, I just want to show you where you can get some fonts. Of course, it's booting me off. And this is Adobe fonts, so these are all licensed to be used on Photoshop, Illustrator, all of the Adobe software. You have access to that. I would just use these. I would get used to using these. And if we look at the licensing, you can see that all of these, most of them should be free because you have the license to Adobe. I think, I checked it out and I think it said, there are some that'll say like, unless you sell like 500,000 copies of the book that you're using it for, or whatever, website, merch, whatever, then you have to start paying more for it. But I would just get used to using these because they are licensed. There are other sites like DaFont and Font Squirrel and other ones out there. But they are free to use for like personal use. And then if you want to use them for a client, you have to pay the person who created the font. So my suggestion is just get used to using Adobe fonts, much like Adobe stock. Typography works very similar to stock photography, stock illustration, where someone made it, someone owns the rights to this font, and they are letting you use it typically for personal use free of charge. But once you start doing professional work, then you want to make sure you're using something like Adobe fonts, or you're paying a type foundry. There's a lot of type foundries out there that make custom type. In typography, you learn how to make fonts so you can actually make your own type. But this is a good bet to start with, and I would just, again, make sure you're knowledgeable about where you're getting all your assets from. If your friend made a font and they want you to use it, cool, that's fine. But if you're ripping off some font that you found on DaFont and you're using it to sell a bunch of merch or something like that, that's not okay. Because again, unfortunately, as artists, we don't make a whole lot of money, and we need to be the ones who put up a boundary when others try to take that work from us. So anyway, so that's it. So you can well, I'll just show you how to download. So let's say I want to add this family. It's automatically uploaded to my Creative Cloud. I should be able to go in here now and find Coleman. You might have to restart it. In fact, you probably do have to restart it, but it should just show up within Photoshop, within Illustrator, and any other software that you have downloaded. Okay, friends, that's it for tonight. I will have a couple more videos up on Wednesday for you. Have a great week, everybody, and let me know if you have any questions. I have office hours 10 to 1, or is it 11 to 1? I can't remember what I wrote in the canvas. On Monday and Wednesday. I don't have that open right now. Anyways, if you have any questions, if you go to the syllabi, you'll see my office hours there, Monday and Wednesdays. I believe it's 11 to 1. But don't quote me on that. If I'm never, like, if you happen to go on my Zoom and I'm not on there, it's because I forgot to turn on my Zoom. Sometimes I get the update on Outlook, but if you're waiting for a long time, just shoot me an email and I'll hop on. It's likely that I'm doing something else, probably hanging out with my senior dog because she's really distracting, but also adorable. And one day you'll get to see her. But have a great week, everybody. I'll have a couple more videos up on Wednesday. Thanks.